What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips for game week 33. So I'm going to go through some of the popular players people are looking to put into their squads and taken out and give my opinion on whether they are good moves or not, plus some alternatives as well. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. So let's start with Bukayo Saka, the most brought midfielder ahead of game week 33. And those numbers are only going to increase if he comes through the Real Madrid game without any issues. As we get closer to the game week 33 deadline, I'm seeing more and more people have concerns about his minutes in the short term and the long term, and basically questioning whether or not it's worth buying him. Like, let's not forget, he is 10.5 million. Since he got back into the Arsenal squad, fit again after that hamstring injury, he's only started one game, and that was in the Champions League. We know he's going to start the second leg against Real Madrid as well. And then if they get through, which looks likely, there's going to be more rotation later on around the semi-finals, because ultimately Arsenal are not going to win the Premier League, but they're also not going to fall out of the Champions League spaces or spots. So at this point, Champions League is the biggest priority for them. I think it's fair to say that for game week 33 specifically, the range of minutes that Saka could play is quite broad. I'm pretty confident he'll start at least one of the games in 33, because they've got Real Madrid midweek tomorrow. Obviously, then we'll find out if they're through to the semi-finals. Then it's Ipswich away at the weekend, then Crystal Palace midweek. But then in game week 34, they don't play, and they also don't have an FA Cup game or anything like that. So they're going to play Crystal Palace and then have quite a bit of a break before their first leg of the semi-finals if they get through. So the first leg of the semi-final is played after game week 34, but before game week 35. Then you've got the Bournemouth at home game. Then it'll be the second leg of the semi-final. So I think he'll definitely start one of the games in 33, but I can't guarantee he'll start both. So if he does start, he probably won't play 90 minutes. I doubt we'll see Saka play 90 minutes for the rest of the season, to be honest. So let's say he gets 70, 75 minutes, and then in the other game he could get benched, and then it's maybe 20 or 30 minutes off the bench. So potentially he could only play 100 minutes in game week 33, or he could start both, get 70 to 75. So your range of minutes is probably looking something like 100 to 150. So you're not quite sure what you're going to get, but I think whatever range of minutes you get from Saka, he's probably good enough for game week 33. So I would definitely include him on a free hit. And if you're on free hit 34, you could bring him in, not worry about game week 34 and the blank, and then decide what to do with him in game week 35. If you've got no free hit and you're brave enough, I think you could go without Saka. Because if you get it right and he does only start once, then you can get someone else in that's also going to start once in 33, like a Bowen or an Mbeumo or someone like that, who we're going to talk about later, that also definitely has a fixture in 34. And you know they're going to start that week as well. And once you get past blank game week 34, they're going to continue to start. Whereas with Saka, you might have a situation where he starts one and is benched in one in 33, doesn't have a fixture in 34, gets rotated for Bournemouth because it's right in between the semi-finals, and then it's Liverpool away in 36 anyway, which is a tricky game. So for 10.5 million, like, now I'm talking it out, it actually doesn't sound that good, but I still think for what he can offer in that double game week, and there's the potential that he does start twice in 33, because there is such a thing as match fitness and rhythm and stuff like that. I don't think, like, some people are acting as if Saka's just going to be permanently benched in the Premier League. I don't see that. I really don't think that's going to happen. I still think it's worth it, but I'm personally fully aware that if I bring him in then free hit in 34, I might be selling him again in game week 35. Like 37 and 38 look good. Newcastle at home, Southampton away, but you don't know what the minutes are going to be like longer term. So I'm fully aware that if I bring him in now, I might be selling him before he even plays for me again after 33. The other thing that's on my mind is, if you're looking to bring in a double game week player this week and you don't want to go for Saka, who else do you go for? Because Odegaard got benched last week, so he's not fully immune from rotation. I'm sure the same could be said for Martinelli Merino. You could say that if there's going to be lots of rotation, Trossard is better because he's not part of the first choice 11. And I think long term that could be correct, but I'm not so sure about game week 33. So then you're looking away from Arsenal players like maybe a Kevin De Bruyne, but I'm not exactly massively confident in his minutes either. And then you've got like Aston Villa players. So if you're going Rodgers for safety and you want to go for a second Villa player instead of getting Saka, then you've got like a Rashford. But again, his minutes aren't secure either. So it's all well and good looking at Saka saying, I'm not confident in the minutes, but there's lots of players I'm not confident in. And then then I'd be looking at single game week players. But because I'm on free hit 34, it's not so important for me to cover that week. So I think, like I said, if you're brave enough, you could go without him, like a Bowen or an Mbeumo instead, if you've got no free hit. But I think for a lot of people, if your plan was to get him in, I still think that plan holds. Because someone like Cole Palmer, who's a similar price, like he's not exactly pulling up any trees at the moment, right? He's not getting us a massive amount of returns. And there's just not a huge amount of other standout double game week players. It's worth saying my plan ever since I wildcarded in 30 was to bring Saka in. So I'm probably slightly biased towards that plan and still want to do it. And I am slightly concerned about the minutes, but I just think in 33 we're definitely getting one start. We might get two. And if that happens, I definitely want him. Am I convinced enough to captain him? Not necessarily. I'm going to talk about that in tomorrow's video. But I still want him in my team as long as he comes through that Real Madrid match tomorrow. But if you are someone that's concerned about the minutes, I think that's valid. He may not start Bournemouth. And if he starts Liverpool, it's a tough fixture anyway. You could go without him and it could work out really well. So if you're looking for an Aston Villa midfielder, who'd you go for? They've got the double in game week 33 of Newcastle at home and Man City away. So certainly not an amazing double game week, but the fact you get an extra fixture is always nice. They got the blank in 34, and they got the last 4 games of the season, Fulham at home, Bournemouth away, Spurs at home, and Man United away. They do also have FA Cup to play for as well, so a semi-final against Crystal Palace, which will be played in that blank in game week 34, essentially. I think we all know at this point, if you want the security of minutes, it's Morgan Rogers. Plus, he's still less than 6 million. His underlying numbers are nothing to get too excited about, but he always plays. And given the fact we've got a blank in 34 to contend with, then possibly there could be doubles in 36 and blanks in 37. Transfers are going to be precious. So although it's a boring pick on paper, going for someone like Rogers that you can just leave in and not worry about, that seems quite nice to me, especially when he only costs 5.6 million. So I still think he's the safe, solid pick. With Rashford and Asensio, you've got 2 players you can guarantee minutes from. Like Asensio, for example, has started the last 2, but they've kind of been rotation games for the most part, especially the Nottingham Forest game, right? They rotated quite a bit. They rotated less so in the Southampton game, but Asensio didn't start the PSG match. And so that doesn't give me huge confidence that he's going to start every single game going forward, because that PSG game was huge and Asensio didn't start. And he was available to play even though he's on loan from PSG because he came off the bench. And if you look at his minutes prior to that, there's only one other start, which was Chelsea at home in 26. I think he did have a bit of an injury problem around 28, but against Brighton, he was benched again. So you've got no guarantee of minutes. And unlike Rashford, he doesn't have penalties. Like, he can take penalties, not very well, as we saw in the last game week, but Rashford is their number 1 penalty taker. And for 0.5 million more, he also seems to be first choice number 9 at the moment. Like, Ollie Watkins spoke yesterday ahead of the Champions League game saying he's not happy that he's on the bench, but it's the manager's decision. Yes, he did get, Unai Emery said a few weeks ago that Watkins had been carrying an injury, but we've not heard anything about that since. So it might just be that he prefers Rashford as the number 9. But it still doesn't guarantee his minutes. Like, even when he has started, he's still not played more than 66 minutes. I think, basically, if Rashford starts the second leg against PSG as the number 9 again, then you've had both PSG games plus the Southampton match where he has started ahead of Watkins. That probably tells me right now that he is first choice. He's lower ownership, I would assume, for engaged managers than Rodgers, and he's got penalties. So from that point of view, he's a really nice differential punt. But every time I think about it, it almost doesn't matter how many times Rashford plays number 9. I just don't believe long-term he's going to keep Watkins out of that position. Like, Watkins is a better number 9 than Rashford. We all know at this point Rashford's best off the left. And Unai Emery spoke in his press conference yesterday about the fact he wants to play Rashford and Watkins as almost like a front 2. But he doesn't have enough time to kind of practice it and stuff like that. So it sounds at the moment like it's going to be one or the other. I like Rashford as a short-term punt. I would include him on free hit 33, especially if he starts against PSG. But long-term, I just see Watkins getting back in. I just don't see Rashford keeping him out of the team for the rest of the season. So I think Rashford and Asensio's minutes are questionable, especially long-term. But because Rashford's first-choice penalty taker, I'd have him ahead of Asensio. But if you want to play it safe, it's Rodgers. The punt for me is Rashford. If not, you just go Rodgers. So let's move on to Man City midfielders next. Probably even more of a headache than Aston Villa ones. There's 2 words to describe owning a Man City attacker at the moment that's not Marmoush. Unbelievably frustrating. Foden gets brought in on wildcard, bench then gets injured, which is a bit unlucky, right? You can't account for injuries. But even if he was fit, you wouldn't be completely sure about his play time. Then Savinho starts 7 in a row and then gets benched twice. And now flavour of the week is Kevin De Bruyne because he's done really well in game week 32. People that have got Foden, it's a nice, easy, straight swap. And I also think there's a little bit of nostalgia there. We know it's De Bruyne's last season in a Man City shirt. It's your last time to own him. And he's got a double right in front of him. So I completely get why people are looking at him. And the fixtures are quite good for the rest of the season. So the double this week is Everton away, Villa at home. Then it's the blank in 34. So especially good if you're on a free hit 34 strategy. Then it's Wolves at home, Southampton away, Bournemouth at home and Fulham away. And also, and this is not guaranteed, but if Man City get past Forest in the FA Cup semi-final, there is potential for their game against Bournemouth in 37 to get postponed and brought forward to 36. So then potentially you've got double game week, free hit, Wolves at home, double game week that includes Southampton away. That looks quite nice. Now let me state the obvious. Kevin De Bruyne is not likely to start every match remaining this season. There's 6 fixtures left for Man City. I think if you get 4 starts from De Bruyne, that's probably a good return. I think if you get 5, you can consider yourself very lucky. And if you get 6, well, I'll believe it when I see it. Because his minutes have been all over the place this season. And because they're still in the FA Cup, there is going to be some rotation. Man City don't have Champions League spots secure, that is worth saying. But from everything we've seen so far this year, De Bruyne is not capable of continually playing like 80 to 90 minutes week in, week out for Man City. So there is going to be some rotation. But I did say with Saka, he's also a minutes risk because of Champions League and stuff like that. But there's not a huge amount of other alternatives with a double this week that are guaranteed minutes that you don't already own. Unless you're going to go and bring in a Rodgers instead of a Saka or something like that, which I don't think most people would do. So because of that, taking a punt on De Bruyne is probably fine. Again, if you're someone without a free hit, you might want to go for a safer pick, like an Mbeumo that you know is going to start both games in 33 and 34 and is on penalties and is not a minutes risk. Because remember, even though De Bruyne's got an extra game this week, he obviously loses it in 34. So on a non-free hit strategy, you could absolutely just ignore Man City players completely. So I get the punt for De Bruyne, but you are not allowed to buy him and then get annoyed when he gets benched. You know he's going to get benched at some point. It's going to happen. So bring him in knowing that. Because the fixtures are so good, you want to take the punt. So I'm not talking anyone out of it, just stating the obvious. He's going to get benched at some point. Foden, we need to wait and see what Pep says. So basically in the press conference on Friday, there was nothing that came out. But in the embargoed quotes later that day, at about 10:30 in the evening, he said that Foden was a doubt. So if he's a doubt going into 33, I think you've got to sell him. Because even if he's fit later on, you don't know how many games he's going to start. So I would get rid of him. Straight swap to De Bruyne if you want to. If you've got money, go to Saka. Otherwise, like an Eze, Rodgers, whoever you don't own, they all look pretty good for the double. If he's fit, by the way, I'd probably lean towards keeping him. Because he'll start one of the games in 33 if he's fit and available. And again, you've got those good fixtures later on. Similar situation with Savinho, apart from we know he's available because he was on the bench last game. There was a rumour going around that he wasn't fit enough to start, but that didn't come from what I saw from Pep Guardiola, so I don't know how much stock to put in that. I think with Savinho, because of his price, again, I'd probably keep him because you're probably going to get at least one start in 33, and then I would just give yourself a chance to get more minutes from him later on, as long as you're the type of manager that can deal with the odd benching here and there. Because if not, just get rid of him and buy an Aston Villa midfielder or something like that instead. But I think you're probably going to get one start in 33. And if you're free hit 34, you come back to a couple of good fixtures. Yes, he could get benched, but if he starts, there's potential to do really nicely. So if it's a choice between Savinho and Rodgers or Savinho and Eze, I'm taking Eze and Rodgers for security and minutes. But if it's, I don't even know who else you would buy that's cheaper. Like Kluivert wasn't in the squad again last night for Bournemouth. Around that 6.2 million price point, there's not a huge amount of great single game week options. Like Semenyo is probably okay now. I think we're past the yellow card mark for him, so he's not going to get suspended for 2 matches anytime soon. So potentially you could look at a Semenyo instead. But I think for that kind of price point, I'm more willing to take a risk on, a doubt like Savinho because of the double. So again, I'd lean towards keeping him. I wouldn't buy Savinho or Foden. So even if Foden's fit, the only one I guess I would buy is De Bruyne, but even then I'd be a little bit wary of it. You don't need triple Man City for game week 33. It's not essential, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you've got Savinho, keep him. If you've got Foden, he's fit, keep him. Otherwise, sell. De Bruyne, if you want to go there, do it. But like I said, you are not allowed to be annoyed when he's benched. So Ollie Watkins is the second most popular forward this week. 45,000 FPL managers have brought him in so far. I'm considering doing the same. It would be for Isak and it would be for a -4. But at this point, I almost need to see Watkins start against PSG tonight. Because if he doesn't, as I said earlier, that's the third game in a row that Rashford would have started. And so then he looks like the first choice number 9 at the moment. And I know some people will say, well, if Rashford starts against PSG, surely there'll be rotation for the next game and Watkins will come in. That didn't happen in 32. Rashford started PSG, then started Southampton, and Watkins was on the bench again. So I might just take the risk anyway, because from 35 onwards, Isak's fixtures aren't the best, and I'm free hitting in 34, so the Ipswich game, it doesn't matter because I can just put him on my free hit. But I don't want to completely write Isak off as an option either, because although the fixtures do get a bit trickier, we know he's absolutely nailed, and Newcastle are fully capable of getting goals against Brighton away, Chelsea at home. Arsenal away in 37 is definitely difficult, but outside of that, the fixtures aren't terrible. They're worse than what they've had recently, but you'd still back Isak in most of those games. So I'm very wary about making that switch for a -4 to the point where I almost need Watkins to start. But I still can't grasp that Rashford is starting ahead of him. I keep thinking there must be an injury still for Watkins. He's surely a better number 9, but that is not what we're seeing at the moment. We're seeing Unai Emery pick Rashford. So I'd be very careful about bringing Watkins in. I would definitely wait and see what happens in the PSG match. If Rashford picks up an injury or if Watkins starts, then obviously that's encouraging that he might start as the number 9 moving forward. But even if he does start against PSG, he might then start against Newcastle and get benched against Man City. I think it's fair to say at this point we cannot be sure about Watkins' minutes for the rest of the season based on what we've seen in recent weeks. So it is a bit of a punt bringing him in. It depends who you're selling. If it's Isak, I think it's a really tight call, and I'm really not sure which way I'm going to go. If you're selling a forward that you're just not happy with, or is injured, suspended, whatever, not guaranteed to start, fair enough, take the punt on Watkins. But do it knowing that he is a massive minutes risk at the moment. So Eze also has just over 40,000 transfers in this week, and I really like him at 6.9 million if you're on a free hit 34 strategy. If you're not, I would probably ignore him. He's not too far off the price of like a Jared Bowen, for example, that has Southampton at home this week and obviously doesn't blank in 34. And the thing with Crystal Palace is they might rotate in that Arsenal game in the double because it's right before their FA Cup semi-final match, which is probably going to be more important. So either they're going to get rotated against Arsenal or it's just a difficult fixture. So if you're not on free hit 34, I'd be tempted to ignore Crystal Palace players at this point. If you are on free hit 34, I would still go with it because there is a chance he starts both games in the double. And then you come back to Forest at home in 35, Spurs away in 36, and Wolves at home in 37, which is quite a nice fixture run. And also, you're hedging your bets about potential doubles in 36. If Palace beat Villa in the FA Cup semi-final, then potentially their Wolves at home game in 37 could get brought forward to 36. At that point, you would have double, free hit him out, Forest at home, double that includes Spurs away, Wolves at home, and then you would just sell him before 37 because he would blank, and then it's Liverpool away on the last day of the season. So even if you're not tripled up on Palace already, if you're on a free hit 34 strategy, I like bringing in Eze. And in terms of engaged managers, like top 100k and stuff like that, his ownership is still slightly lower than Sarr. Overall ownership, I think Eze is even higher than Sarr at the moment. But in terms of engaged managers, he's still got lower ownership. And for that reason, I really like him. But if you're not on free hit 34, I think I'd probably look elsewhere. So Bryan Mbeumo has been sold by just over 50,000 FPL managers. His price is now down to 8 million. I completely get why people are selling him because I always want to have the maximum amount of double game week players that I can. That's why I'm still looking at Isak to Watkins for a -4, despite the fact that could end up as an absolute disastrous transfer. And so if you're selling Mbeumo to a double game week midfielder, I absolutely do not hate that move. I will say though, don't sell him without giving it a lot of thought, especially if you're not on free hit 34. Because one thing you have from Mbeumo is guaranteed minutes. And if you look at the fixtures they've got for the rest of the season, it's not a perfect run of games, but it ain't terrible, and they've still got Ipswich away to play in 36. So Brighton at home this week, Forest away in 34, Man United at home in 35, then that Ipswich game, then Fulham at home in 37, Wolves away in 38. There's every chance that Mbeumo will play 90 minutes in every single one of those, and we know he's on penalties as well. So do I think that he will outscore like a Saka or a De Bruyne in 33 specifically? Probably not. But could he match or outscore them for the rest of the season? I think yes. And if you already own him, you're saving a transfer by not taking him out. I'm telling you now, once we get past the blank in 34 for those of us that are free hitting, there'll be lots of chat about whether or not to bring Mbeumo in. Not necessarily for the Man United game, but definitely for the Ipswich game in game week 36, because you know you're going to get guaranteed minutes from him. A player that's got 6 points per match so far this season. And I don't even necessarily expect him to hit 6 points per match for the rest of the season, but I think he can get like 4.55 or something like that. And that may well be enough for that 8 million price point. So I think it's okay to sell him for a double game week midfielder, especially if you're on a free hit 34 strategy. I also think it's perfectly okay to hold on to him. Like, again, I will probably bring in double game weekers this week instead, because that's just the way I prefer to play. But I would not be surprised if Mbeumo ends up outscoring most of them for the rest of the season. He's definitely someone I got my eye on later on. He's still a really good pick. But again, you want to sell him for a double game weeker? Go for it. So speaking of single game week midfielders, Jarrod Bowen looks like a great option this week with Southampton at home. West Ham also have Ipswich away on the last day of the season. And in between, it's Brighton away, Spurs at home, Man United away, Forest at home. So overall, not a bad fixture run for the last 6 game weeks. He's another player like Mbeumo that you know is going to play every single game and have decent minutes. He's certainly not a bad transfer in this week. If you're just not happy with any of the double game week options, definitely look at Bowen, especially if you're not on a free hit 34 strategy. Because although there might be some pain in 33, like Saka, De Bruyne, Rodgers could outscore Bowen in 33, when you combine 33 and 34, it might be a different story. Because Saka's got Ipswich away, Palace at home. Bowen's got Southampton at home, Brighton away, because he doesn't blank. So I think he's a really nice option. Again, would I necessarily bring him in ahead of a double game week midfielder? Probably not, but it is Southampton at home. If you're ever going to do it, it's when a player's got a fixture like that. And then if you are free hit 34, you've got a really nice fixture run to end the season. 2 home games, Spurs and Forest, and then one of the away games is Ipswich. So I think it looks really nice for Bowen. And again, I always prefer to take a chance on the double game weekers, because if it goes right, there's huge points available. But I would not be surprised if Bowen outscores a bunch of them, and then later on you don't have that minutes risk to worry about. You just leave him in your team for the rest of the season. So he's a really good option. He's not actually that popular this week. 16,000 transfers in. It's quite low in terms of other midfielders. And I guess at 7.5, he's a lot more expensive than like a Rodgers, Savinho, Eze, etc. But I think he's great. 4.9 points per match so far this year. Even though he's been in a struggling West Ham side, he's still delivered 8 goals, 8 assists. Really solid option this week. So let's talk about Chris the Inevitable Wood, who's not so inevitable anymore. He has failed to score in each of his last 5 fixtures, but the fixture run coming up is pretty good. And this is going to be a very similar discussion as it has been for Mbeumo and Bowen. If you're not on a free hit 34 strategy, there is every reason to potentially keep hold of Chris Wood. 75,000 of you have sold him, but actually the fixture run for the rest of the season is pretty decent. Spurs away this week, Brentford at home in 34, Palace away in 35, then Leicester at home in 36. After that, it's West Ham away, Chelsea at home. Forest still fighting for Champions League places. Chris Wood is now back fit. He played 90 minutes against Everton. We know his minutes are good. We know he's on penalties. I think he's a solid option at 6.9 million. I think when you look at forwards right now, the most popular forward line is Isak, Mateta, Marmoush. If you've got that, you're not buying Chris Wood. I completely understand it. But let's say you've got Marmoush, Chris Wood, and Isak. Okay, you might be looking at double game week players. Mateta's just got hooked at halftime, subbed early in the previous 2 matches. Nketiah's back now, might get rotated against Arsenal. If not, it's a difficult game. Ollie Watkins, I've talked about him already in this video, right? The minutes are not guaranteed right now. And obviously Arsenal, the other double game week team, don't have a fit forward. So actually, if you're on like an Isak, Marmoush, Chris Wood front line, is Chris Wood worth selling? Possibly not. Like if you're buying Marmoush, then it makes a lot of sense. And if you want to get Isak instead, fine. If you want to take a risk on Mateta, Watkins, I get it. But outside of that, if you're just looking at other single game week forwards like a João Pedro, for example, or an Evan Nielsen, I think you save your transfer and just keep hold of Chris Wood instead, unless you're desperate for the money. So certainly not essential. Hasn't been all season in my eyes, although he has absolutely smashed me for what it's worth. But still, I think for his price under 7 million with the fixtures Forest have got, he's fine. But if you want to go for a double game week, again, that makes a lot of sense. If you enjoyed that video and found it helpful in any way, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'll be back tomorrow with the game week preview. So if there's anything I haven't covered, don't panic. There's still plenty of videos to do that in. Let me know what your transfers are going to be in the comments below, and I'll catch you again soon.